me, time and temperature abuse. That's probably the thing because I mean, I'm Black and we always have cookouts and things like that where we get group gathering, eating, and that is something I'm always like looking around, making sure. I'm like, is that cold? How long that's been out? You've been checking on that? Make sure that's covered.
Welcome to another great episode of Dre and Smiley, The Inner Circle.
Dre, it's sometimes and you just get so excited your cheeks hurt because you can't stop smiling. I've been in the software business since 1988, so I'm dating myself. I've been in all types of manufacturing, all types of stuff. But in 2020, I got a job with a food safety software company. And what we do is we go into food plants, slaughterhouses, warehouses, cold storage freezers. So we go into these places and our software allows them to do inspections to make sure the food supply is safe. And when I meet people on the plane, Dre, I say, you know what? I keep the world's food supply safe. If it wasn't for me, y'all be sick all the time. So you're like, you don't
You
do all
see
that.
this cape I'm wearing? I don't wear it for nothing.
I'm like, you're able to eat 3 times a day without having problems because of me.
Because of me.
But you know what? I've been embellishing a lot because that's what I do. I'm in sales.
Yeah.
But when I came across Nancy, she actually does it. And I'm just to have someone in my field that understands what I do, it's just amazing. So let me read about Nancy. She's a Los Angeles native. She's been in the food industry for 15 years. 5 years of that is in compliance. And people don't realize they just willy-nilly eat at all these places and they're not sick. They don't realize that that's because they're standing on the efforts of Nancy and her colleagues. But she graduated from Cal State Northridge with a bachelor's degree in Environmental and Occupational Health. So Nancy, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And first and foremost, I want to thank you for what you do. I was looking at some of your TikToks. You mentioned you were at the Rose Bowl, the Staples Center. You're doing things at the different grocery stores. Everyone takes it for granted that their food is safe, that their food doesn't have any sort of excessive chemicals or sanitation. So can you tell us what is the day in the life of Nancy?
That's such a good question. Well, a day in the life of a food safety auditor. That's what I'm called. Since I don't work for the government, I work in private sector. So, and so basically, we make our own schedule. I will say that we make our own schedules. So, I just basically, I decide what time I'm gonna go to my sites, depending on what time the managers arrive, and then I go to work and I spend a few hours there. And I do, walkthrough of the store, and I check all the documentation, and if there's any events of any like non-compliance or anything, I either do a training right then and there with the managers, or I just write it up. And then, and then I just go home. I take pictures of all the non-compliances, and then I go home and I write it up. And it doesn't really take that long, but it's such an important job. And so sometimes during my audits, I go through the store to even check the prices. So I'm even checking for the prices to make sure that no price discrepancies. I'm making sure that when you go to the meat department, they're not charging you for the tray or the soaker, to make sure that there's enough, that there's not a lot of moisture in there, to make sure that people are being charged the right prices, because sometimes with weights and measures, the people, they may include the cost of the tray and the soaker in the price for the chicken that you may purchase, right? But you're not supposed to pay for that. So I go through and I also make sure that any of the like club prices or anything like that they're accurate. And so that's another thing that I do. And one thing I do want to point out is that if you ever go to a store and you're overcharged by $5, they either give you the item for free plus a refund, or they can give you a gift card to the store. And so it's like no one notices, but there are big placards right above the checkout stands. Right above that'll tell you, like, if you're overcharged or if it's under $5, they'll just give you a credit for whatever they overcharged you for. So just know that part. But that's basically a day in my life. It's exciting to me because I'm very nerdy, but to some other people it may just be like regular day. But I enjoy what I do a lot.
What you do is so amazing because I keep coming back to everyone eats. and everyone who
Yes.
isn't eating, which they were eating 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I explain it to people who don't understand, like, well, what is it that you do? Why are you wearing these hard steel-toed boots and going through slaughterhouses or different cold storages? And I was like, well, food is time and temperature. But if you're
Yes.
off on the temperature, off on the time, things grow. You mentioned that you were in occupational health and safety. How did you pivot into food?
Actually, it's kind of funny. It was almost serendipitous how I ended up in my program because I actually wanted to go to medical school, but all of the science majors were impacted except for that one. And they were like, "Well, if you want to go, you can go. You can still go." So I still took
I
the
hear you.
classes that you need to take to go to
Mhm.
medical school. But by the time he said that by the time you're finished, most people don't even end up going, right? And so here I am. I didn't even end up going. And so I started as a server during college. And it just happened that when I got into my major, and I learned about all the food safety and things like that, I said, well, I'm already doing this. And so I just stuck with it and I went to the other side. And once I found out that one, we usually make our own schedules unless you work for the city, and it's salary, so we don't work full-time hours. Sometimes you can, but most of the time you don't. You spend a lot of time traveling, so that also piqued my interest, and so that's kind of how I ended up in food safety. I didn't take the occupational health route simply because it was a lot more complicated. You know, like you have to deal with a lot of industrial hygiene, noise, radiation. I didn't want to do all that math every day for a living. So so I took the regulation side, the environmental side, and basically the environmental is just everything that we do and interact with. So food, water, air, anything that you need to run a city, transportation, all that, that's what I learned about. And so I just chose food safety, and it just blossomed from there. Everything in my life is food now. My hobbies are food. My work is food. Everything. My TikTok became food. I didn't even know that video was gonna blow up like that. So I was just like, okay, well, this is where I'm supposed to be. So yeah.
Before I turn it over to Dre, because prior to getting this job in the food industry, I was in life sciences. So we were regulated by the FDA, but it was medical devices and pharma. But then I came over here and I was doing everyone in my colleagues at my company, they do hobbies, they cook, bake, do all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Well, my grill skills weren't the greatest. So what I was doing is I was getting grilling food and inviting the homeless people to come and check out my hot dogs, my hamburgers, my ribs. Now, I'm 1 to 10. I'm about seven, maybe 5.5. I need to give myself
That's
a
what the homeless people said. The homeless people gave you a 7 or a 10. Is that right?
part of my head was they were just so glad to eat. They didn't really
I was
care about
about
the
to say.
taste. When my family comes around with the taste, they're like, man, I ain't eating this. So I kind of like feeding them better than my family because I feel better about myself.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Great.
That's hilarious, Smiley. So, Nancy, let me ask you a question. Tell me about some of the impacts of the food regulations, both positive impact and the negative impact as far as regulations go.
I think some of the more positive, I can talk about the positives first. The fact that we have now, okay, so the food industry has come a long way. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that book, The Concrete Jungle, that was about the meatpacking district in New York. So
Mm.
basically, from that, it was just refrigeration was not a thing, time temperature abuse was not a thing, sanitation was not a thing, indoor running water. I mean, the whole thing, it was just really, really crazy. So that began the world being, well, the country actually began, the United States being more interested in our food safety. And so we've come a long way in that, where we have, been able to implement things with our FDA as far as clean water, as far as PPE, sanitation, regulations and things like that. But I think the beginning of where it really started to modernize was during it was the Tylenol like scare. That was the beginning of like consumer safety, but then it really got serious when there was a recall with Jack in the Box burgers. That was the beginning of everyone saying, okay, even though we were doing a lot of supplier work, we got to get all the way down to the consumer level. And so since Jack in the Box, they ground meats, they started to track ground meats now. So every time I go to a store, if they grind down any meat, because ground meats can be a mixture. So that's what's so important, because ground meats, it can be from one animal or another, and they all put it together. And so that's why I always recommend, if you get ground meats, I'd rather someone went to the meat department at a grocery store where they grind the meat, so that you can be able to track it. And it's usually from one animal. So that's something that we've come far with as far as like our ground meats. And also, people learning about the nutrition, as far as like, we had the 5-a-day campaigns, things like that when I was growing up. And so we've come pretty far with that. And all of the recent recalls too, given the one that's happening right now with listeria, with the boar meats. I mean, they have recalled thousands of pounds of like lunch meat, and so I think since we've already kind of mastered the cooking part, now we're getting into the ready to eat foods and how to protect our ready to eat foods, like sandwich meat. I don't really eat a lot of sandwich meat because I'm afraid, but but that's basically what we're getting into now. We're learning about ready to eat food, because everybody thinks, okay, if I cook it, it's safe. But what if you don't cook it? Just like, Chipotle, they had their spinach or the romaine lettuce recall. We don't cook our romaine lettuce, so these are things that we've like started to transition into the more ready to eat foods, and they've become more stringent about that. And as far as like hazard analysis and critical control points, as far as taking care of the transportation, because that's usually what happens. It's somewhere in between when it's harvested and when it's transported. That is where the problem may have started. So that's kind of what's happening now.
Nancy, I don't know if you noticed, I fell out of my chair 3 or 4 times. I have 100 questions. I got so many questions for you. Okay, where do I begin? So, tell me, Nancy, why should I not eat processed meat, like sandwich meat? You said you stay away from it, and there's a reason why you stay. Yeah. There's a reason why you stay away from it. Why is it?
Okay, number one, I stay away from sandwich meat because my mother didn't know how to cook, so we ate a lot of sandwiches. So I'm okay on
that. Okay. So you burned out. Okay.
I prefer I prefer hot sandwiches because the meat is cooked. Usually what they do, sometimes the preservation methods that they do to create, deli meats, you have to go through a process, right? So they process it and they cure it and things like that. And so usually that's where it's some type of time and temperature abuse there. And so that's probably, but to me, I think you may have to worry about that more with things like turkey breast and, ham. Bologna is so processed, it's basically like eating a hot dog. So it's so much like salt and preservatives in it that, it could probably, it could be dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as, say, if you're eating fresh sliced deli meat, things like that. So sometimes just in that, because of the human element, right? So if they package in the food at the process plant and then they send it in straight to you, it's a little less of a chance, but sometimes given the human element of everything, that's what makes it a little more dangerous. So I just prefer a hot sandwich, if you ask me. That's it.
Makes sense. Okay. Makes sense. So quick funny story. So I grew up eating bologna, right? As a kid, fried bologna, it tastes so good, right?
Me too.
Mayonnaise. Yeah, right. So I loved it. So I was in college and I made my little fried bologna sandwich, packed it up for lunch, and took it to work. And I'm sitting in my little cubicle and eating my bologna sandwich, and somebody's like, "What is that smell?" I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't smell anything. I'm just here to eat my. Eventually, they realized it was my bologna sandwich, and so I had to kind of stop bringing those to work. But that's what I grew up on. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, me too. I definitely will eat a cooked. I will eat a hot bologna sandwich. I definitely will. It just hits different. It just hits different. I don't know. It's
different.
Yeah, something about that fried bologna together. Like I don't know. Cold bologna sandwich? Absolutely not. Who am I?
Nah, no.
Yeah, what am I? Exactly. Gardener? No way. But
exactly.
Fast. I will.
Yeah. It takes you back. The other question, you mentioned that sometimes there's meat that, you want to go to the source. You're getting ground beef. On occasion, if I heard you correctly, sometimes they'll have ground beef, and I heard you say, and other meat. what ground together, and they're selling it to you or serving it to you as ground
Oh
beef.
no, I mean as far as other meat, I meant like, so say if it's ground pork, right? They may put a ham, right? They may take one ham, which is like the thigh, right? They may take the thigh or the scrap of the thigh, and then they may take another animal's thigh and then grind it all together, and now you have ground pork. They don't say this is one ground pig. You know,
Gotcha.
so that's what makes ground meats kind of harder to track when it comes to recall and things like that, because of the different animals. You know, every different animal has a different number. That's why they have the little tag on their ears. And so it gets a little harder with recall when they start to mix the ingredients all like that. That's all I meant. I didn't mean, but sometimes you can buy ground meat and it'll tell you there's organ meat in it. Now, I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on
What?
TikTok where people buy. I don't eat ground beef. Honestly, I don't like the taste. But there are people out there who eat ground beef and they're like grass-fed organ meats. I'm like, organ meats? I'm okay. I don't know.
What is that?
But I used to work for a store that was an international grocery store, and when I tell you, Americans, we are picky people. Okay, we try to stick to the muscle meats. Other like cultures, they eat every single part of the animal, down
Brains,
to
the
the
tongue,
uterus of the pig.
ears. Yeah,
Tongue,
yeah,
ears, uterus, liver.
yeah.
I'm like, the uterus
Yeah.
thing, they don't get no respect. But
That's right.
yeah,
It's
no,
like
all
nothing.
of it. All of it. The intestines.
If you can season it, you can eat it.
Yes, I've even seen duck tongues. I'm like, that little bitty, like, what? I didn't even know ducks had tongues. Are you guys serious?
Right.
You're like, it's
Right.
crazy. So I've seen
That's
some
crazy.
pretty like crazy stuff. Yeah.
So here's a follow up, and I'll pass it over to Smiley here. So, with every career, there's kind of things you bring home. If you're a physician, you're always, being extra careful about your child and things that might cause them to end up in the ER. In your career, what's something that you just can't shake when you leave the office, air quotes, and you're out and about living your life? What's that thing that's just is always on your mind to be cognizant of, because it's what you do for a living? What's something that's always at the
I
forefront of your
think
mind?
for me, time and temperature abuse, that's probably the thing, because I mean, I'm Black and we always have cookouts and things like that where we get group gathering, eating, and that is something I'm always like looking around, making sure. I'm like, is that cold? How long that's been out? You've been checking on that? Make sure that's covered. Like that's how it is, because we gather.
How long
that's
has
our
that hot
thing, right?
potato salad been sitting on that table?
Right, and I also have to tell people
Uncovered.
that people think that, it may be the mayonnaise in the potato salad. I'm like, no, actually, it could be, but mayonnaise is shelf stable. You can leave mayonnaise out and it's fine. So it's really the cooked potatoes and the eggs you worry about. That's what makes it spoil. So, that's something that I tell people. I'm like, they're like, I don't know because of the mayonnaise. And I'm like, well, actually, mayonnaise is shelf stable because it has so much oil in it. But what you worry about is those cooked potatoes and those eggs for sure. So that's something that I'm like always like looking around, checking. And then I was a server for so long. So now when I go out to eat, I'm like looking around, checking. And sometimes I have to like tell myself, like, Nancy, just chill, just enjoy your consumer, relax, But sometimes, especially at like buffets, I'm like, what? Do you guys have like the log? Because at buffets they have to throw the food away every 4 hours. So I'm like, I'm looking around checking for the log, see if it's out. I'm like, so those are it's mostly time temperature abuse that I focus on when I'm like not at work. That's pretty
I'm
much
sure. Real quick, Smile. I'm sure that at the cookout, your cousins then be talking about Nancy over here talking about food is shelf stable. I don't know what she's talking about.
No, seriously, my family is honestly they kind of know what I do, but they kind of don't. So they're just like, because I'm not. I don't know, like I'm just like a lone ranger in my life. I don't have any children, pets, or plants, so it's just me. And so they know what I do, but they kind of don't, and they're just like, "What does she do?" And then I'll tell them, and they're like, "Oh, she like delivers from Eva," and I'm like, "Yeah, but no," And so sometimes they're like, "What is she even talking about right now? What? How do you know?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been doing this for years. You guys don't even care." Like, what the heck? Like, but yeah, no, I definitely have had have those moments, especially especially since my sister owns a catering company. So sometimes I'm like helping her out as a server, and I'm like, "Whoa, we got to make sure that we put that back," or you got to make. And she's like, "Calm down," and I'm just like, "I just want to make sure." I'm sorry.
Food safety is so basic in our culture that we take it for granted. I'm so glad that you mentioned that book, The Concrete Jungle, because a lot of people don't realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
They don't realize how listeria, you mentioned we have that borers recall now, but back in the day before the regulations came in, that was a
Exactly.
commonplace. Recalls was always happening and
Yeah.
people were dying because of this. So
Yeah.
when I say you're helping humanity, you definitely are.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
but tell me this, when you said you work for an international company and now you're working with the, let's say, national, do you find that differences in the, let's say, safe quality food, SQF rules and regulations or BRC, when you're working with from a federal or a national level, the difference between Mexico and the US perhaps, or the difference between California and New York, or let's say California and state of Washington,
Okay.
is it small differences or big differences?
Well, I worked at an international store, but I haven't done the international route. That's my next step in my professional process, because you have to have at least 5 years of experience before they'll let you out to before they'll just throw you to the wolves. They're like, no, you gotta like get some experience. So, but I have noticed the difference in just Northern California and Southern California. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I think the thing that really separates it, even in New York, I've seen New York as well. It's like how stringent the local government is. Like in Los Angeles, it's not it's not hard to pass a food safety inspection from the city. It's kind of hard to get a B though. So if you got a B, it's kind of like, how did you get a B, dude? What were you doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was broken? Like what was out of temperature? What were you? But say for instance, in other parts of the country where they don't have a letter grade system, they may have just red, green, and yellow, and
Mm-hmm.
you got a green paper, but I go in your store and there's evidence of pests, and there's the food contact surfaces haven't been cleaned in a long time, or the sanitation is out of whack. So it just really depends on the local government. I think Southern California in general, we have a really stringent local government when it comes to everything. So our food, our air, our water, we are almost separate from California in general. So there's a California air quality management, and then there's Southern California. So we just have different. We're just way more stringent. So there's like federal regulations that we meet, but then you have to meet our regulations for just Southern California or Los Angeles County. So that's something that I noticed. If you live in a place where they're very strict locally, you can have a better chance of having safer food.
Now, you mentioned that you're doing the inspections in grocery stores. Have you worked in the plants, the manufacturing plants, or any of the farms, or any of the places where, like farm to fork? Are you at the
Yes.
farms? Are you at the slaughterhouses? Or you always been in the consumer side with the retail?
Right now, I've stayed on the consumer side. I've worked in the suppliers on the supplier side, manufacturing, doing beverages, but also what I've wanted to learn more about is farming. We don't actually have a certification body for farming. Ironically enough, the big farms that Tyson and I forget the name of the soybean company, all those places, they actually formed like a little like authorization body or a certification body. They formed it themselves and they oversee it themselves. So that's something that I've been really trying to get into, to kind of infiltrate, because I don't know. I mean, personally, I live in America. Any industry that oversees itself, yeah, exactly. It's like something where you're like, I don't know if I can trust you guys' judgment, okay? So that's
Yeah.
something that I've really been wanting to get more into, even though I got a weak stomach. So going to the slaughterhouses and the dumps and things like that I've done like during internships, I've been like, whoa, this is just, it's a crazy like environment, given everything. But I do want to get more into that side of compliance. So just so that I can like, do more from that part, like before it gets out to the consumers, not waiting to the last minute like in the stores.
Quick story. I came from pharma, medical device, and everything was suits, cufflink shirts. You're in Boston,
Oh
you're in
yeah.
San Fran. You're, so then I started working here 4 years ago, and I've been to several slaughterhouses. So January of 2024, I stopped eating pork
Yeah.
because I was telling my neighbors I get haunted because if you ever see a pig, Dre, pigs have human eyes. So I'm at the slaughterhouse and they're getting ready to get slaughtered, and we go through the process of them getting off the truck, coming from the pig pens or whatever, and they go through the process. They slaughter them in the gas chamber, and then they slice them and all this stuff. And the eyes of the pigs, they were like talking to me like, save me, save me. So I
Oh
was just,
no!
so after like
Oh,
2 years of that, I'm like, you know what? I stopped eating the pork. I cut out my
oh.
ribs, my pork chops. But the one thing that is July, I can't let the bacon
Yeah,
go. For
bacon.
some reason,
Yeah, everybody struggles with bacon.
I struggle with the bacon, Dre. So I said, okay, Cal, probably by January 1st, 2025, it's going to be no bacon, no everything. But it's a slow process of weaning out that bacon. But
So,
I
so
will be
Smiley,
aware.
do you before you eat the bacon, do you take a few crumbles and drop them on the ground for the homies, for the dead homies?
I said, but you know what? The ribs and the pork chops, I don't see the pig eyes anymore. They're not in my, they don't haunt me anymore. So it's just like, but that bacon is such, it's like an addiction, like in a drug. I can't let go of the bacon,
What's
but
in the bacon, Nancy? What's in the bacon? What's the
yeah.
reason for
Well,
it?
I think that well, as a person who has tried to transition out of bacon as well, I think that bacon to me, it sounds crazy, but it's to me it's one of the safest ones because of the simple fact of how it's processed. They remove all the moisture from bacon when they process it, you know, they because they're curing it. And when you cure, you salt it. And so they remove a lot of the moisture and things like that. So, and then they vacuum seal it when they send it to the store. So that's one of the safer meats. I always tell people if you're going to eat pork, I'd rather you ate bacon than you ate a pork chop or pork muscle meat because that it sounds so crazy. I don't want to scare anybody, but when there's worms or anything like that in pork, it's usually in the muscle meat. Even though bacon is muscle meat, the way that they process it is different. So that's why even though bacon is pork belly, they don't call it pork belly. They call it bacon. You know, so to me, whenever I recommend to people, I'm like, yeah, I don't eat pork muscle meat, so you may not catch me eating a pork chop. I haven't had a pork chop in ages, and it's just because I'm like, yeah, no, those ones and like you said, Smiley, that pork, the way that they process pork and the pork baby pigs and all that stuff, it's just the way that they force pigs to live. Pigs are actually, they say that pigs are dirty animals, but they're actually not. They're like related to hippos. So really what they would do is just swim all day if they could. They would just spend all their time in water. But the way that we raise the pigs is what makes them more dangerous and things like that, and how we harvest them. And so, quick story, I was in high school and it's just like this food safety thing has been following me around my whole life, okay? Because I was in high school and I was on a mock trial team and I happened to be the chef, right? For no reason. I was supporting my friend. I didn't even care about law, but I just supported my friend. And they got me a book at the end, and it was a book about slaughterhouses and the meat processing plants and things like that. And I read a lot about how they do the pigs. And I was like, dang, they just have zero compassion for these baby pigs. Like, and just, I mean, yeah, granted, it may be a little more humane the way that they slaughter them, but it's just the way that they were describing it. I'm just like, that was so crazy. But yeah, so I recommend if you're gonna eat it, eat the bacon if you're gonna eat it. But things like pork roast, pork loin, those are the ones that I'm like, no, I'm not eating that.
No, you know what? I'm so glad you said that because I think Dre, just because of what Nancy just said, I might go to June 2025. So she just gave me another 6 months of bacon. So, so I appreciate you. I'm serious. I look at I had a hamburger without the bacon cheese, with just the cheese. It
No.
just tastes the same.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like, oh,
no way can you have a hamburger with no bacon on it. Like, no way, no,
exactly.
no.
So
That's like having
look, I
breakfast
got
with no breakfast meat. No, it just doesn't work.
exactly. It's just like,
It just doesn't work.
sacrilegious. It's
It just doesn't work.
sacrilegious.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I don't blame you.
but before I turn it over to Dre, one thing, like when you're doing your inspections, if you had to rank them, because you were talking about HACCP, hazard analysis, critical control points, and all that cool stuff. Do you find that most of the violations are a biological nature, a chemical nature, or a physical nature? Meaning their sanitation program is just bad, or they got a pest control program and there's too many rats and whatever it is, or what do you find the
I
predominance?
think I mostly find physical violations the
Hmm.
most. The most. There's been times where I found like spoiled food. I'm like, y'all know this is spoiled. Throw this away, you know.
Yeah.
But I definitely find more physical violations, like how they store the food. Hierarchy of storage is a thing, and it's not a thing in our homes. It should be, but it's a thing. Where you don't want to put raw chicken over ready to eat foods, right? Or you don't want to put, so those are the things that I find the most, or that in grocery stores that they don't cover the food. They'll just leave it open in the fridge. And I'm like, you gotta cover this because you don't want to clean the fans every day. So cover the food. So it's usually physical contaminants that I see the most. On this side, once I'm getting into the supplier side, I'm actually interviewing for a company right now to begin the supplier side, and so I'm excited about that. I really am.
Yeah. So we touched on, food and health issues, things like that. I was reading a report recently that around 2020, 42% of the American population is obese. A lot of that has to do because they're eating fast food, processed food, things like that. What role do you think the industry, food regulation, that type of thing, plays in helping to decrease that number?
Oh, it's all a game, Dre. I mean, I'm gonna be honest
Tell
with
me
you.
about it.
It's all a
Tell me about
game.
it. Tell me about it.
It's
Tell me
all a
about it.
game because number one, I think that the food industry, it's not as like we would. So as long as it's safe, quote unquote, they don't care. So I think for me, the fact that the American Heart Association, it also supports and funds a lot of the foods that give us heart disease. So stuff like that, like even or the fact that they take a lot of the fiber out of our food when they process it, and that's a huge factor in why people become obese, because if you don't have enough, they take the nutrients out and they take the fiber out, so there's nothing helping you digest or doing all those things. And so when you're eating all these preservatives preserve, right? So just like I know you guys probably seen that video of that hamburger from McDonald's that just never went bad. So it's almost like that. So it's because you don't have fiber. So now you just got, and I think that that's what contributes. And I think the fact that there's a lot of chemicals that are banned everywhere but here that they put in our food. A lot of the dyes are banned everywhere but here. So those are things. And then I don't know if you guys ever eaten in another country. If you eat an American food in another country, it has the labels on it: excess sugar, excess fat, excess salt. All of our food is labeled like, hold up, before you buy this, know that these people don't care. Like, so that's something I think for us, that they kind of make it seem like they keep things safe where you won't get sick per se, but they don't keep it healthy to where you won't get sick down the line. So I think that's what keeps a lot of people big. Yeah, gets people big too, because they don't have a lot of digestive enzymes.
I like that. That was really informative. And
Thank you.
tell me this, before we move into Final Four, was there anything that we should have asked you that you want us to ask you that we didn't ask you about? Hey, we've been talking about your job, your career. I don't know if you wrote a book or if you got any other
Oh no.
things that you're doing over there, or anything
Um,
that we should have asked you that we didn't ask you.
no, actually, surprise. Like I said, I was not expecting that video to get 780,000 views. I did not expect that. I was like, people actually care? Like, oh my God. So I was so shocked. I was like, wow. And so now I did, if anybody is interested in food safety, they can go to my TikTok, or getting into food safety. They can go to my TikTok page. I have a free ebook that you can download just to, get you into the door if you want to learn about the certifications that you may need as a beginner or things like that. That's something that I'm giving away. But I was shocked. I was like, people actually are interested. Like, I dropped that video in January. I'm still getting comments to this day. like people asking me like, oh my God, can I do this? Can I do that? So that's it really. But no, I think you guys asked me some pretty cool questions.
That's because you're a superhero. You just don't know it. You're
Yeah,
keeping,
I did not know. Look at
you are a
me.
superhero. Everyone in Los Angeles, which is a very big city, if they're coming to your stores that you're inspecting, then they know that they're eating healthily or not healthy. They're safe
Yes,
because
safe
you've
food.
been there.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I'm like Clark Kent discovering himself right now. That's how I feel. Like I'm like,
my,
Wonder
or am I
Woman.
Bruce Wayne? I don't know. You know, I'm like trying to figure it out.
my belly thanks you for your service. My belly does that.
But I will say that that's really what he's. I don't know.
It does. Dre does too. He just doesn't know it.
But that's something that really got me into food safety. After I graduated, I had started working for a car rental company, and I just felt like, I'm not giving back to the world enough. I'm a very empathetic and very compassionate person, and if I don't feel like I'm doing anything in the world, I get like depressed, right? So that's what got me into doing food safety, where I was like, okay, even if it's in my mind, even if I'm imagining things, I still feel like I have a hand in helping the world. Like I had to have that in my career. I was not going to be I can't be money motivated or sales driven or anything like that. Like I have to have something where I feel like I'm giving back and my existence matters. And so that's what really like keeps me in food safety and what really drives me. Because I just feel better about myself knowing that I'm not spending time on the planet being selfish.
Love that. I love that. So, Smiley,
Wow.
you want to kick it off?
Yeah, we're getting ready to move into the final four.
We're high tech up in
Awesome.
this piece.
I seen
Yeah.
that. Got the drum roll.
So,
That's right. That's right.
Joe Rogan better move over. We on our way.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I see y'all.
We're on his heels.
Y'all are crazy.
What is something that never fails to make you laugh? To just have you grabbing your side, you just can't stop laughing, bringing tears to yourself. It's so funny.
Wow. I think pet videos, when pets show their personality, because they don't talk. And so sometimes pets will really give you the side eye, like, wait a minute. And I think that all pets, honestly, and I've seen it, and the more I'm on TikTok, the more I see more pet personalities where I'm like, wait a minute, these jokers can't talk, but they definitely will give you a look or two, like, where they're like, or if they, like, I've seen it so many times, and I think that that's what makes me laugh. Dog videos, or just pet videos in general. People with their rabbits, and their rabbit is, like, not having it. Like, because I used to have a cat, and so cats, they are very much like, yes, sure, I'm your pet, but you're not my owner, so I don't care. I don't know what you got going on. And so now when I see like pet videos or cat videos, I'm just like, yo, these animals, and I just watch them whenever I'm feeling a little down. I just watch them and I just start laughing. So that's something that never fails to make me laugh.
It's funny you mentioned the cats. Last night I was dying watching something on social media where it had these, I guess, and maybe you can confirm if this is true or not. If you put foil down on a counter, yeah, it freaks them out. So these cats, Smiley, were like jumping on countertops, but the owners, anywhere they didn't want the cat to be, they would put foil down.
Yeah.
And so it was like a 30-second clip of just cats like jumping where they shouldn't be jumping, and seeing the foil. I guess it's their reflection. Is that what happens? The reflection causes them to jump?
I think it's actually cats don't like when their paws are not used to something. So, like, if you try to give a cat a bath, it doesn't like that feeling of the paws being on the tub. That's why cats don't like going, they don't like that. They don't like that feeling. So when they step on the foil, just the feeling of their paws being underneath it, they're like, no, it's just...
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, they don't like that feeling, they don't like it. They don't like anything that's abnormal. They're they're control freaks in my opinion, but I never say anything.
That's right. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
No.
Who's the one person, Nancy, that you would be willing to trade places with for a day?
Dang. The person I'd be willing to trade places with. That's a good question, because like I don't want to pick anybody rich because they probably have a long day. Like, so like they probably
they got money problems.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to do that. Probably, I don't know. that's a really, really, really good question. Somebody I would switch places with if I could for a day. You know what? I would probably switch places with a deep sea diver. Like somebody who likes to go free diving and things like that. I'm deathly afraid of it, but I'm super intrigued and I want to do it. So I'll probably just switch with them for a day so I could just like not be like have their fearlessness and then go back to my regular life. But that's something I really would love to do. So I would love to switch places with somebody that free dives.
Like it.
Here's another one. I was in the Caribbean. I think I was Jamaica. I was like, yeah, we're gonna go diving. They went through the hazards. I was like, I ain't doing this. And I didn't do it. I was like, man, they
What's the
start talking
hazard?
about the bends and nitrogen in your blood and all this other stuff. You keep going down if you rise too fast. And I started
Gotcha.
listening to that. I got up at like
Pressure.
7 a.m. so I could be all prepared. After I listened to that, I was like, man, I ain't doing this.
Well, you
I
are a
was like,
beginner.
oh,
I'm sure they probably wouldn't have taken you down that deep, right? But you
no,
can't
But
even get the
no,
pins.
still, I would have done it.
so,
I don't trust it. And that's exactly how I feel. You know, because the pressure, it's a big pressure difference. You know, people don't really think about when you're swimming, you don't think about that water is heavy. Water is very heavy.
yes,
So the deeper you go, the heavier the water is on top of you. So it can cause different types of pressure differences in your body and in your ears and all that stuff that creates that equalizes the pressure for us. That's how our bodies equalize pressure. Is through our ears and obviously through our nose and our mouth. But yeah, so that's something that I want. It's so beautiful down there, though, and I would
yeah.
love to see it. But just take me
Oh,
on your GoPro, please.
That's right.
You know what I
here-
mean?
here's another one. If you ever make it to Hawaii, I was in the Hawaii. It must have been 2095, 98. I think I was in the Hawaii. They got this submarine. It's a tour ship. You get in the submarine and you go under the water in the ocean, and it's the coolest thing because you're there like a fishbowl, and the fish are looking
Yeah.
at you as you're looking at them. So that's the closest I got was being in a submarine. But
You know, the
here,
closest I ever got was going on one of those clear bottom boats. I'm claustrophobic. You can't put me in no. I'm good. Please. I can't. I cannot. Oh my God. I'm so claustrophobic. So for me, being in a submarine and all these fish looking at me, I'm looking at the fish. Oh no. Like I'm tripping. But
Let me out of here. How
yeah,
do I
but
get
I've
out?
gone on one of those clear bottom boats where I'm like, okay, I feel good because I got air up here and then I got sea down
Right,
here. You know,
right.
I'm like getting the best of both worlds. But
Best of both
yeah, I
worlds.
am that's another reason. And then also I get seasick. So it's like all these like fears and things going on. That's why I would love to switch places with somebody who could just do that. Yeah, for sure.
awesome. Here's one. The third question. What is the best compliment you ever received professionally or anything? Best compliment.
Best compliment I've ever received. Um was I think for me it's the fact that people can tell that I come from a place of love. Every time I've talked to someone, I talk to people all day. And so my family members and things like that, and I've done a lot of work on the inside to grow up, and so even in my work, people are whenever I explain something, they're like, "You're always so nice." Like the way you explain things, it's so nice and you're just so patient. And in reality, I'm not a patient person. I don't know who I become. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, that Clark Kent Superman thing, or am I Bruce Wayne? Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really what happens. And so that's to me is the biggest compliment because I've done a lot of work to be able to communicate, and make sure that people know that I'm being honest and being sincere. And so I think that's one of the biggest compliments that I get is that people are like, you're just always coming from a place of love. Even if you disagree, you're okay. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm not okay, but thank you. Like, no, I definitely disagree with you. No, but I'm okay. So I definitely think that's
Yeah.
one of the ones that matters the most to me. Because again, I'm very compassionate and very empathetic. So how I come across to people or how people receive me is very important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one thing people don't know about you that you wish they knew?
That I'm actually an introvert. Like I'm a super introvert. So like I can spend a whole week at home alone. Like, and I won't leave the house and
No
I
problem.
don't feel anything. But when people talk to me, they're like, "Are you? You don't seem," and I'm like, I don't even like human beings that much. I mean, they're cool, but it's almost like you take like, it's like, to me, I feel like human interactions are almost like when you go to the burger place and you order a burger and fries and they're like, would you like the combo? You're like, might as well. That's how I feel about people. Like, it's like, oh, I mean, it's cheaper to go this way. You know, it's like, so that's how I feel about human beings. I love being a compassionate person, but as far like, I'm just not I just would rather like avoid human interaction. As open or as like, it seems like I'm very extroverted, I'm funny, I'm charismatic and things like that, but I actually I like to do things alone, actually. I go a lot of places alone, concerts, museums, everything, live shows. I do a lot of stuff alone. And like I said, as friendly as I come off, I'm just, I'm nice, but I'm not like super friendly. Like I could do without that. And I think that's something that people would never figure that out.
So Dre, if she sat next to me on a plane,
oh boy,
she would probably feel invaded, because when I sit down next to somebody, I'm like, this is either a monologue or a dialogue. What do you want?
you have one of two options.
Well, first of all, I always do the awkward moment countdown. So if I'm like sitting on a plane and I see somebody sit next to me, I'm like, awkward moment, 5, 4, 3, 2, hello. Like, I'm just like, I don't say something.
My name is Smiley, and I'm in food services. What do you do?
Yeah, I just come down and I brace myself for impact. That's what I usually do.
See, Dre, she has a countdown. She sits down. Hey, I'm Smiley. I saved the world.
He was like, wait a second. I didn't even get to one. What happened?
You're right.
See, security. I need to move seat.
And so, yeah, like, I'm just like, I'm always like, and like I said, I don't know, like, I'm nice, so I'm inviting at times. And so I always do. I'm very introverted, though. So social interactions, they like make my palms sweat. And I'm just like, but I'm very nice, and I mask really well. Thank God for practice. But yeah, like I mask really well. Nobody would ever be able to tell that I'm like, do you have to talk to me? Do you have to touch me? Oh my God. Like, but if I sat next to Smiley on a plane, I think we would kind of get along, because what he does for a living, and we could just talk about that. Which is fine, because that's like an umbrella. Like, I have an umbrella that protects me, my job. I can be whoever I need to be for work. But like actual me, I'm like, sure, yeah. Let me see the picture of your dog or your kids or whatever. It's like, oh,
no, Smiley would be the one to be like, see this is a picture of my grass. I planted it last week.
Yeah, and I'm feigning excitement. I'm like, oh, it's so green. Oh my God. Did you see? Like,
you guys get along perfectly on a flight.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's something that I don't think people would know about me. But it just, I don't know. I've tried to avoid it in life, but I just come back to my roots every time. I'm just like, I think I had my dose, and then I need to like socially recharge for a week where I'm just like, so that's one thing that I do love about my work. I get to make my own schedule. So when I don't feel like dealing with anyone, I don't have to.
Yeah. I'll tell you real quick. Smiley came to so we live in two different cities. He was here in town, and one thing that stood out is like he genuinely enjoys just meeting people, talking to people. We went for a walk. We went to get some food, waiting for the table, just walking around the neighborhood. And he starts talking to this dude. I'm like, I gotta tell you, Nancy, I pulled out my notepad and my pen. The way he engaged this guy was genuine, was authentic. Like he genuinely enjoys just meeting people and talking to people. So, and the guy was just like, I was looking at the guy because I was wondering, like, is he feeling this, or is he kind of like, who's this weird guy?
Right.
Dude was talking more than Smiley was. So it's like a skill he has in terms of just like connecting.
But then you never
people,
know, because sometimes I talk more because I'm socially anxious. So now it's just word vomit. I'm just now. But for me, I think it's really because once you break the chain, once you open the gates, no silence now. It can't be silence. Now I feel awkward. You wanted to talk, right? I thought we were talking. We're not talking. Now we're not talking. Now I should be quiet.
Make up your mind. You want to talk to me? No, you don't want to talk to me. Make up your mind.
Right. Once you begin, it's like you got to commit to it. I got to commit, because now it's awkward. Yeah. Now it's no more talking. We were talking 5 minutes ago. Now it's silence. I have to pick. So it's either silent from the beginning or chatting the whole time. I'm a chatty
Right.
chatty, honey. So I'll just keep
Right.
going if I
There's no
have to.
middle ground. There's no middle ground.
No middle ground. Once you open the floodgates, hey, you better have your raft ready because it's about to be. I'm gonna get that yapper.
Your raft ready. I love that.
Love it.
That's a T-shirt, Smiley.
Love a t-shirt.
You mess around
Have
with
your
me, you
raft
better have
ready.
your raft ready.
Yeah. I don't know. And everybody's like, but you're so chatty, and I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm nervous. Okay.
That's right.
I'm
Oh,
like I'm
right.
like trying to avoid the silence now. You didn't woke up the beast.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Nancy, I'm gonna pass it to Smiley here, but real quick, I just wanted to say before I pass it to Smiley, I've learned a lot. Like,
Oh, thank
genuinely
you.
learned a lot about the food industry, things that I should be aware of, mindful of, things like that. And you are kind of a beacon of light. I love your I don't want to say aura. That sounds corny, but yeah, you just come across as authentic and genuine.
Thank you.
I'd love to have you at our next family reunion. Sitting on the side with your notepad, talking about that potato salad been out 2 hours.
Right.
Somebody
Asking where the
or
log's
whatever.
at.
But
Y'all wrote this down?
yeah, that's right.
Nope, that time right there. That time.
Smiley.
Appreciate it.
well, Nancy, like I said when I started, I've been smiling this whole
Oh,
session
thank you.
because I feel like we're kindred spirits because my family, I talk to my friends, they have no idea what I do. And when I saw you on TikTok, and I was like, she does exactly what I do. I sell the software to people that get audited by your
Yes.
profession. And they're just like, so all of this stuff, we're in the same side of the industry, keeping the world food supply safe, doing what we do to keep humanity eating well.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking time to get on our podcast
Oh, well,
this
thank you.
early morning. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
again
finding
for
my
being
story interesting enough to feature on your podcast. You guys have had some pretty interesting people. So I was like, what? I'm going to get on there. I'm all, yeah, food temperature. Like, and then have people on here talking about becoming millionaires. I'm like, all right, okay. Sure.
Whether you're Steve Jobs when he was alive or Jeff Bezos, they all need to eat and they all are
Yeah.
they ain't upset if they no matter how much money you have, it's not gonna help the food stay safe.
Yeah.
So you're doing the fundamental, the basic stuff because when they get their hamburger, hot dogs, or romaine lettuce or whatever it is, they're confident that they should feel happy that they got someone like you and your colleagues making sure they can bite that sandwich, whether it's fried or cold,
Yeah.
and don't have the runs.
Yeah.
You stop people from getting the runs. That's what I do.
I feel you on that. And that's why I got into a job security. Everybody got to eat. Everybody got to eat. I don't need to convince you to eat. I don't need to convince you to buy it, to sell it. No. Everybody got to eat. And so that's job security right there for sure. Even if I was feeding the Jeff Bezos of the world or whomever, even the Kamala Harrises of the world, I'd be like, girl, eat that corn on the cob. I made sure it was safe for you, girl. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to do that. That would be so fun to be the food inspector for the president.
Oh my gosh, I can't
I
even
would probably
imagine. That'd be so much
all
fun.
day.
Yeah.
Well,
But thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for having me on this podcast. You guys are a blast. Like, wow, you guys are really cool people. So
Appreciate it.
So I love that.